Alright, so today we're going to take you through the steps of how I would go about engraving a watch. I get watches a lot here in my shop, and the first step of doing that after the customer's dropped it off with me is to take a photo of the back of the watch or the location where you're going to be doing the engraving. Alright, so after we take the pin out, the next step is to lay it in the photo booth. I have this white photo booth that has top-down lighting. And one of the things that I've recently been doing, which is really cool, and I'm going to talk more about this, is I've been using a bottom lit light as well. And what that does is, if you can see right here, when I'm taking my photos, there's shadows that are created along here, and I don't like those shadows because I have to remove them in Photoshop. Now that I have the watch open and I've got it backlit and I've got it top lit from the top down and from that, I think I'm ready to take my picture. Alright, so the next step, now that I have my lit photo booth, is I need to take a top down picture. So I'm going to take a top down picture of the back of the watch, and that's it. Now I'm going to transfer those photos over to my computer, and we're going to go in there and I'm going to show you how I edit the photos and then how I bring it into Adobe Illustrator to make a proof. And we're going to watch that process too. But before we do that, I want to talk about our sponsor of this video, ADDMOTOR. Now, you're going to start to see in some of my future videos, I'm going to have some sponsors on the channel. Now, the reason I'm taking this on is it's a great way to help support the channel. It's a great way to earn some extra revenue, which is part of why I make these videos. In future videos, if you see me talk about a product or I have a sponsor, just know it's something that I really think is awesome. So without further ado, before we go over to Adobe Illustrator, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about ADDMOTOR and this sick e-bike that they sent me. I think you're going to be pretty impressed.
So what does laser engraving and the 𝐋𝐚𝐬𝐿 M81 e-bike have in common? Well, I'm glad you asked, my friend. When I'm not in the shop playing with lasers, I like to get outdoors, and this e-bike has got to be one of my favorite ways to do it. This e-bike can do it all. You don't want to pedal and just let the e-bike take you where you want to go with its 750 watt brushless motor? You can do that. You want to go off-road and rip it up with its oversized Kenda fat tires? Oh yeah, you can do that. Maybe you just want to take a leisurely cruise on some scenic bike paths if that's your thing. This e-bike has got you covered. Oh, and is it fast, you say? Yeah, you could say that. With its top speed of 28 miles per hour, it's got plenty of fast. I'm telling you, you need to go check this bike out, and make sure you use my discount code listed in the description below. This e-bike has got to be one of the most universal tools in my shop, and damn if it ain't fun. Well, it's official. That was super sick. I hope you enjoyed my tour of the M81 ADDMOTOR electric bicycle, because this one's a keeper, folks. All right, we've taken our pictures and now we're back over here at Adobe Photoshop, and we're going to go ahead and place our favorite watch photo. And I like this one in the middle, so I'm going to go ahead and bring that one in, and I'm going to enlarge it a little bit just so I can see what's going on. And I know that picture seems a little dark, but that's okay. We can adjust that here in Photoshop. So I'm going to go up to Image, Adjustment, Brightness, and bring up the brightness. And you see what we have is a nice clean photo of our watch with no shadows around that I have to worry about getting rid of. And I can just mask this out and take this really clean photo of the customer's watch, which I'm going to show you how to do now. That's why I like using this backlit light board for all my product photos. So I'm going to go ahead, now that I've adjusted the brightness of the photo, I'm going to go ahead and do the rectangular marquee tool. I'm going to click that, and then up here I'm going to click Select and Mask. And what this does is it put a mask over the whole photo, and I'm going to use this little paintbrush tool to deselect the parts or remove the mask of only the parts of the photo that I want to take over to Adobe Illustrator. So I'm going to start painting over the watch, and you can see when I start painting over the watch, I'll zoom in a little bit for you. It's selecting only the watch, and you can adjust these parameters over here. I'm not going to get in too much into the Select Mask tool, but this is how I grab one of my photos that I've taken for making proofs.
This is how I select just the part of the photo that I need for the proof, because I don't want to send them that whole picture and use that and make a proof on top of that. I just want to have a clean picture of whatever they dropped off to me to do my proof on. And so it takes a little bit extra time to take these pictures and do this mask, but it really does, it's a professional way to give them a proof of what you're going to be engraving on their item. So now that I've selected the parts of the watch that I want, I'm going to click OK down here in the lower right hand corner, and you can see that Photoshop has selected just the watch parts that I want. And I'm going to go ahead and click Edit up here on the top, Copy, and I'm going to go over to Adobe Illustrator now, and I've created an artboard that's 11 by 8.5, and I'm just going to hit Control V and paste that watch without the rest of the photo into my proof. And if it's not straight, you can grab the upper corner here in Illustrator and kind of straighten it up a little bit. And that's it. That's what I'm going to use for the photo that I'm going to use for the customer's proof. The next thing I need to do is I need to take these measurements. So when I start designing, I need to take these measurements of the outside diameter of the back of the watch where I'm going to be engraving, and this inner part too, because I can't engrave in that area. I have to get all their engraving in this inner part right here. Off camera here with my caliper tool, which you all should have by now, I'm going to measure the outer diameter first of the back of the watch, 1.42, and I'm going to draw myself a circle. That's 1.42, just like that. So I know this is the actual diameter of the back of the watch, and then I'm going to grab that inner part, which I already measured and I know is approximately 1 inch. Now I'm going to add a stroke to both of these shapes that I just created just so you can see. So now I have the inner part right here, right? Which we can actually color if we want to remind you that that is the, if you want, you can use this as the part you cannot engrave in, that you have to avoid. And I'm going to select both of them, and I'm going to use my alignment tool at the top here and center align and then vertical align. And that is actually the part of, that's my true back of the watch that I have to work on right there. Now you'll notice that this is smaller than this. And we always want to make sure that the photo of the watch as we're making the proof matches the actual shape that we're working on. We want to send customers real to size proofs of what we're going to be doing. So you can see that that doesn't really line up. You see how that's bigger. So we need to keep shrinking our picture down till it matches, right? Or actually we need to go up a little bit. Too big. This can be a little tricky, but we want to make sure, and I'm holding shift when I grab the corner of the photo of the watch, I'm holding shift as I'm shrinking it. And we want to get to where our template that we made that's real to size actually matches. And I feel like we're almost there, but I need to just shrink the watch a little bit more. Let's see. There we go. So now this matches this within a 0.5 millimeter or so. And that is what we're going to use as our proof. But we're going to work and do all of our art and stuff on here. So I'm going to remove this real quick by copying it, and I'm going to go to layers over here. I'm going to add a new layer, and I'm going to lock the layer here so I can't move this watch around. And then I'm going to go back and paste that shape back in. So even if I try to move this watch around when I'm moving stuff around, this watch is frozen in place here, and we're going to leave that there. Now the customer wanted some text on this lower part of the watch right here, but they also gave me a signature from their father that passed away that they wanted me to put up top. And so we're going to have to go back over to Photoshop to do that. And we're going to take the scans of their deceased father's signature, and we're going to put those in Photoshop, and then we're going to turn them into vectors over in Illustrator. And we're going to do that now. All right, so we're back over here in Photoshop, and we're going to bring in these scans of their dad's signature because we need to do some modification to those. So I'm going to bring in the Love John one first. Honestly, this is what you're going to get a lot of the time. This is what customers send you. They send you real small, low quality photos that are taken on their phone, and you're going to have to upscale them in Photoshop or whatever art program that you're using. So by enlarging this on this artboard that I made, it'll automatically upscale it. Now, there's a lot of grain and stuff in the background, and one of the ways you can remove some of that is you can try the threshold tool, an image, adjust threshold, and you can use the slider back and forth. Another way you can do that is you can go up to the adjustments curves, and you can slide these sliders back and forth to get rid of, you see how when I slide that, it gets rid of some of that grain in the background, and you can click OK. Sometimes it gets rid of it, sometimes it doesn't, but you can get rid of a lot of it. It looks like I'm going to have to use the eraser tool to erase some of these grains right here, but not too much. I can adjust the brush size a little bit, just get rid of some of this other poop that we don't need here. And the other thing you could do, if you don't want to do this manually, is you could just send it over to Joy at joydesigners.com, which I talked about in one of my other videos, and I'll list her link in the description below. And she could do all this for you at a very affordable price. You should reach out to Joy if you don't like doing this kind of stuff and you just want to get going. You could say, hey, I got this grainy, super low quality signature that a customer sent me, and I want to make it look nice, and I want to get rid of all these jagged edges, and I just want you to make it look smooth. And you know what? She'll do that for you, because she's awesome. So like I said, this is the way I do it here using Photoshop, trying to get rid of all this stuff right here. All right, now I'm just cropping out part of the image that I need. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to open that up in Adobe Illustrator, and I'm going to hit image trace. That created a vector. And so I'm going to hit expand. I'm going to ungroup this, select any part of the white, select same fill color, and get rid of that. And then I'm going to select the love and select the John. We're going to go ahead and copy that, and we're going to bring it over here, and we've got it on our proofing page. So what the customer asked and what we talked about was to put them side by side and fit it on the top of the watch. It was really important for her to have these signatures, and even if they're small, she still wanted them there. Now I could kind of tilt it a little bit so I could get a little bit bigger on that. But this is the great part about working on proofs at size, is you're working in the correct dimensions. You don't have to reshrink it later when you get over to the engraving machine. So you see how I just put those side by side there? I'm going to go ahead and group those by selecting them both and hitting Control G. And the other thing I like to do when I'm working on the back of watches, if it helps you out, is you can draw yourself a line, give yourself a stroke. This helps you kind of work. And I'll take this line and I'll snap it to the middle. And then now I don't use these lines. Well, I do use them over at the engraver. And I select everything and I use the alignment tool. And then I group that all together. So that helps keep me, my 12 o'clock position, kind of where the center of the watch is. And I can see, that this needs to be turned just a little bit and then brought down just a little bit. And so there's one of the watches. The other one says Love Dad. So that's what we're going to actually engrave. And I noticed that John has a little bit thicker stroke than the Love, and we can correct that too. So the way I would correct that is I would just select the Love, and I would go up here and I would increase the stroke a little bit, but I would make some adjustments here on the stroke. Caps I leave here. The corners I leave rounded, not sharp. You see, when they were sharp, they were all spiky. I do the caps rounded, and then I do alignment in the middle. And what that did was it added a little bit of stroke to it. And I can add even less. And if I like that, I can go ahead and click Object, Expand, and then the Merge tool or the Unite tool. And see what that did there? Just kind of thicken that stroke up so it looks a little bit more uniform like the John. And then we can group those again. So now that we got the signature in place, we still wanted some text at the bottom. So we're going to do that next. And I always like to work with copies of things. Okay, so I've got that aligned, and I don't really need this anymore over here because I'm going to be focused on, I'm going to ungroup this. I'm going to be focused on getting the text at the bottom using the circular text type tool. So for that, we're going to ungroup this. All these are ungrouped shapes now. It's not a group anymore. And I'm going to take the outer path. I'm going to go to path, offset path, -0.10. There we go. See how that, so -0.10 inches offset from the outside gives me a line right in the middle of my area where I can't and the outer edge. So I'm going to go ahead and use that. Now the reason we have this line is not because we're going to engrave it, but so we can use the type on a path tool. And I'm going to click on that path, and that's going to give me my circular text options. And then before I do that, in the paragraph alignment, I'm going to click center. And I'll tell you why I do that in a second. And then last but not least, in the type button up at the top here, I'm going to go to type on a path options. And on type on the path options, it's asking me, where do you want your text? Do you want it to ride along the top of the line you just set? Do you want it to ride on the bottom? Do you want it to go in the middle of the line? And I like to work in the middle. And you can preview where that is. You see how that changed now? So when I type, it's actually, the text is going to be dead center in the middle of that line we created. I'm going to click OK. So now that we have that, we can adjust our font size. And the customer has asked me to put some dates on the bottom. And I just realized that the customer did not give me the dates that were supposed to go on the lower portion of the watch. So I'm going to go ahead and give her a call real quick and get those dates. Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Hey.
Sorry, I didn't get to the phone in time.
No problem. This is Michael from Sonoma Laser Engraving.
Yes. How
Hi.
are you?
I was looking through our emails and I noticed that the one thing that I didn't get from you was the dates that are going to go on the bottom of the watches. I got the signatures, everything else. Can you give me that date, please?
Yes, 1958. Like if you'll do 1958 and then maybe a space and then the dash and a space and then 2023.
So 1958 and then 2023?
Correct.
All right. I will go ahead and I'm going to have a proof for you here shortly to view. And then once you get that, if you need any changes or modifications, you can let me know. And if you like it and you like the layout, then we'll go ahead and get those engraved for you today.
All right. Sounds good. I'll be on the lookout.
All right. Thank you. Bye. All right. So there you have it. She wants 1958 and then a space to 2023. We're just going to go ahead and select all this text, and I'm going to do 1958, and don't worry about the orientation, space dash to 2023. Now that I've done that, I'm going to select my selection tool, and you're going to see all kinds of crazy lines and all this stuff here, and it's so confusing, and I totally understand that. And honestly, this is not one of my favorite tools in Adobe Illustrator. I think they could do a better job at this, but it is what we have to use. The reason we set the paragraph to the center mark here is when you're actually sliding this around, it actually, you'll notice if you have smart guides on, it will stop dead center. You'll see it kind of stop. You'll see it turn purple right when you're in dead center right there. And that's really handy for when you're trying to line things up. So these bars are to be spread out if you had more text, but we only have a little bit of text. So obviously you're probably thinking, okay, well, this is the bottom of the watch. We need to somehow flip the text here so it's flipped. So what we can do is we can grab this center one here and we can drag down. See what I did when I dragged down, it flipped it. Kind of tricky. I'm just using this center tool here to kind of align it centered. And then even when it's down here, we can go ahead and select it and we can change the font to anything we want. So I like to use Callisto for this kind of stuff. And I think that'll be appropriate for this nice watch here. And I get it right where I want it, right in the center there. And that's what she wants on the bottom of the watch. So remember, we're working on our alternate here. So now that we've got the text placed where we want it, we can go ahead and save a copy of this as it is non-expanded. Now, if you want to show the customer multiple fonts, you could just drag a copy of this over. You could drag, and I'm holding Alt and dragging. You could actually show them 3 different font options by making 3 copies here. So let's do that for her just to see if she wants alternate fonts. So I'm going to try a different font here. We'll try Milk Store Clean, see if she likes that one. And then we'll try something super simple like Arial or something and see if she wants that instead. So there are 3 different font options for her. Now, before I send any proofs out, the one thing I do is I save a copy called non-expanded, and I'll call it Watch proof 001 because you may have to send multiple proofs. The reason I call it non-expanded is if you'll notice, I did not expand any of those fonts, and that's really important because if you expand your text to vectors before you set it, and they say, oh, I like font B, you may not remember what font that you used, and you'll have to guess. And I used to make that mistake early on, so I always save a copy called non-expanded. And what I mean by non-expanded is that I'm not expanding any of these fonts to vectors. So when I open that particular file back up, I still can click on it and tell exactly what font it was that they liked. When I send them before I send them the proof, I do expand everything. That way, nothing is reliant on the fonts that are on my computer, or even though I am sending them a PDF, I always do that anyway. That's just the way I do it. So now that I've got 3 font options for her to pick from, I'm going to go ahead and do the other signature, and then we'll come back over here and we'll finalize her proof to send to her. All right, so we're back over here. We finished the other signature here by preparing it the same way, and I've got it all lined up. She wanted one watch. They're both the same Citizen watch. She wanted one that said Love Dad and one that said Love John. And now we're going to show her this proof after we give her these font choices. So to do that, we're just going to make it simple. We're going to take a regular font. We're going to go A. I'm going to hold down Shift, Alt, and Shift and drag it over, and Alt down here. And we're going to call this one, you guessed it, B. And we're going to call this one C. And we're going to expand all the fonts on the screen, turn them into vectors, because we already saved the unexpanded. I'm going to expand. And I'm going to highlight, change the color of these to red, so it's very clear that I am asking her, would you like, for the dates, would you like font A, B, or C? She can clearly see that these are the 2 watches, and if we want, we can put, if we want, I can show her how the signatures are going to look. I can put watch 1, drag this down, watch 2, and then the last thing I do is I usually take the one that I think would look best. I think based on this font right here that actually A is going to look best. Drag a copy of it where it's going to land, and I'll take one of the signatures, holding down Alt and dragging a copy, and I'll put that right where it's going to be. And that is how, if she goes with that, that is how her watch will look, because we're going to do an anneal black mark using the fiber laser, which is what I like to do on the back of steel watches, because unless the customer specifically asks for a deep engraving on the back of the watch, I think that the black anneal mark looks nice. I could do a frosted white mark, but I think that that would conflict with the existing Citizen frosted laser mark that's on the back. And now the last thing I do, I've got her font options. I've got which watch 1 is getting this, watch 2 is getting Love Dad. And then the last thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and save that as expanded, because it is expanded. Everything's a vector in this proof. Proof 1, I'm going to save a copy of that. I always save it as Adobe Illustrator CC Legacy. Okay. And then I'm going to save another copy as a PDF to send to her as a proof called Expanded Watch Proof 001. And it's going to ask me how I want to save that PDF, and I always just do smallest file size. That's way it's easy to send. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my email. I'm going to send her a nice email, say, here's your proof for the watches. Please get back to me of which font you would like me to use, and I will proceed. If she has any other changes, I'll do modifications. And I'll send her another one of these called Proof 002. And once I finally get approval, I will go ahead and engrave the watch. One of the things that I like to set as my policy for creating proofs for customers, sometimes customers can have quite a bit of revisions and be kind of nitpicky and take advantage of the fact that you're doing all these designs for them. So I have a policy that I set in place that you get 3 revisions free on the house. So you get proof 1, proof 2, proof 3. Anything after, any revisions after that, or changes or modifications, are at $20 per revision. And that usually cools people's jets real quick to not try to take advantage of your time when they see that. And I have that in every email that goes out. It talks about my art revision policy in the signature of my email. So that's something you might want to consider implementing in your laser engraving business. And here we are over at the Fiber Laser doing the anneal mark on the back of the watch after all that hard work, and it's coming out fantastic. Then I'll show you the finished product. It's a very nice dark black anneal mark. I don't want to go too out of focus there, but everything came out real nice. And the watch is put back together and ready to give back to the customer. Hey, so if you got value out of this video, make sure you like and subscribe. It helps my channel grow, and even share the video if you feel like it. And don't forget to check out my link for ADDMOTOR. That e-bike that they sent me is really sick. I am not kidding about that. It is one of the funnest things I have ever gone on. If you like to go outdoors, you like to get outside, make sure you check out that link to that e-bike from ADDMOTOR. So until our next project, I'll see you around on Laser Engraving 911.